Thank you all for coming online today to learn about a shared opportunity we have to reinvent and refine modern collaboration via digital transformation. My name is Steve Ball, and I am a program manager in the Identity Division, and I have with me today.
Rachel Teller, also a program manager in the Identity Division.
Excellent. And we're here today to explore a quick glimpse of the next huge identity opportunity, meeting the needs of 2 billion first-line workers. And today we're going to talk about the trends for customer and partner identity management. These are evolving as more relationships become digital. We'll then look at how you can create customizable, flexible, and secure experiences for your users with Azure AD, and we'll wrap up with a few demos. So let's get started. Firstly, let's clarify, who are we talking about? We hear the term Frontline on the news every day lately, but you might notice that at Microsoft, we often use a slightly different term. We talk about the first line. And of course, this includes the frontline nurses, soldiers, firefighters, police force, all of the respected heroes on the front line of our current pandemic and our struggles and our wars. But we use the word first line here to acknowledge something vital about the importance and value of this workforce. And we wish to change how we think about this first line. We want to put their needs first, because our first line includes the less visible but just as vital first line workers who stock our shelves, they drive our buses, they are cleaning the planes between flights, and they're harvesting our food. These are the humble and often invisible people who represent the first line of our businesses. They're greeting our customers at the front door, and they're at the cash register at the restaurant. And generally, these are also the first people to drive the bottom line in our businesses and services. They're often the first to arrive at work, and they're the first people we call to keep our assembly lines moving. They do the heavy lifting, and they transform the atoms into the innovations that we use every day to do our work in the technology industry. And so we use the word first to remember to put them first, not just pushing them out front to protect us in a crisis, but to put their needs first. And so the first line is not just one place. It's also a spectrum. Today's first line worker may become next week's first line manager, and the roles can often change day to day, so that one day you're doing the work and the next day you need to hire 30 people for a retail rush. And in 2020, it's also unclear who should help a new employee, for example, reset a password. Do we expect our first line workers to call central IT or a help desk? Or maybe it should be the manager who just hired you on the retail floor or helped you get productive in your first hour of work. Traditionally, in the last decade, IT will not scale to serve the next 2 billion employees. And so each role in this first line landscape has vastly different expectations, needs, and focus areas. For starters, the first line workers' primary mission is to get and stay employed. They need to join their workforce quickly, learn what their job is, add value, and get up to speed on the tools and technology so they can stay employed. And this is in contrast to what the first line manager experience is. Often the first line manager has the same level of stress that the first line workers have, except they also now need to onboard 30 new employees and manage these people through the entire lifespan of their work force. So the first line manager also is concerned about, they're stressed out, but they're also concerned about both task and people management. And they're generally juggling people, processes, and products. And so the first line workers and the first line managers represent a set of people that we're working to develop new experiences to serve. And this complements the existing work we've done for years to help our IT managers focus on data management, automation at scale, and of course, security and job security. And this is in contrast with our executives, who of course are concerned with the bottom line, but they're also thinking about shadow IT. How can they keep their workforce using the tools that keep their business data safe. And finally, everyone is concerned about our customers, your customers, and we want to make sure that your products and services are safe and secure. And so we are building tools to empower first-line workers and managers to respect and keep your corporate data safe. And so, final quick framing slide. The first-line landscape includes some known challenges. We know that about 25% of our first-line workforce considers that they have the right tools and technologies to do their jobs. This is not sufficient. And often this workforce has multiple jobs with long hours. And we often ask them to use outdated practices, outdated processes, and the workplace is sometimes filled with bulletin boards for scheduling, pagers for communications, and multiple devices with multiple usernames and passwords for factory or retail workflow. And so we want to take a look at this complex analog old world process and give it an upgrade. And in addition, first-line managers have it even worse. They have higher stress and longer hours, and they have to worry about turnover. There's often very limited IT training, as well as the need to manage and onboard a dynamic and often temporary workforce is challenging for the first-line managers. Also, IT has a hard job already, and they rarely have time to budget or focus on friction reduction because they often focus on security fire drills and budget compliance. And so, as we add a whole new layer of complexity and transition to this predominantly digital workforce, IT is tasked with rapidly getting thousands of people who've traditionally not had digital identities into a state of digital productivity. First-line managers have to help keep their employees productive and safe with this new landscape of COVID, this new landscape of remote work, and remote work being the new normal means that we need to think differently about how to empower our first-line managers and workers to get their job done. So what we want to do is share a little bit about some of the scenarios we've been enabling and working on to help solve some of the problems we just described. And for that, I'd love to hand it over to Rachel, who's going to walk through some demos showing off some of these new scenarios that we're using to enable and empower this first-line workforce. Rachel.
Thanks, Steve. We're going to walk through 3 different end-to-end scenarios from setup to end user experience so that we can illustrate how our features allow for seamless integrations with HR systems so that your new employees can hit the ground running on day 1, distribution of credential management so your IT and support teams don't need to bear the brunt of keeping your employees productive, and seamless transitions for those of you using shared devices so that you can help your team members transition devices between shifts so that they can help get customers in and out of the door quickly. Let's start with easy provisioning and sign-in. Now that Woodgrove is starting to open up hiring again in various states, they're tasked with providing accounts to people who have traditionally not signed into identity systems before. They'll be able to simply and seamlessly utilize SuccessFactors, their HR system, to get everyone provisioned in Azure AD without any additional workload on admins. In order to get this in place, they'll need a connection to Azure AD with their HR system. This could be either Workday or SAP SuccessFactors. The following settings in the HR inbound provisioning app: something that maps users from different departments, mapping Azure AD mobile attribute to the phone number set in the HR system, mapping of the Azure AD department attribute to the department in the HR system, the authentication method policy that enables the retail workers group to perform SMS sign-in. I will walk through how to set that up in a moment. And a Power Automate script that queries the Azure AD provisioning logs for new hires and takes that mobile phone and registers it as an authentication method. If you'd like to see a step-by-step walkthrough of how to configure this scenario, check out the Bridge the Gap Between HR, IT, and Business with Azure AD talk. For now, I'll just walk through how to set up that SMS sign-in policy, what the experience is going to look like for the admin, and for the first-line worker actually going to sign in. So to set up the SMS sign-in policy, we're going to start by going to Azure Active Directory and selecting Security. From here, we'll select Authentication Methods and click on Text Message. We will add the retail group, hit select, and save. So what we've done here is said that any person coming into the retail worker group can use their phone number for SMS sign-in, and you'll see what that looks like at the end of this particular demo. What we'll need to do, though, in order to get that fully set up is ensure that those users have a phone number set on the account. So we can do that through the inbound provisioning, as we'll show. An admin could go and set that on the user's profile. A store manager can set it through My Staff, or a user can set it in their own account through the My Profile website. So let's look at what we'll need to do to get this user provisioned. So we're going to start at SuccessFactors, where a member of the HR team will create a new employee as they traditionally would for an employee joining the company. We're going to select Best Run Retail, which is a subsidiary of our Woodgrove tenant here, and we're going to add them as a new hire. We'll just fill this out as we traditionally would. So what we're going to need to do next is fill out this phone field, as it's what we're going to use to allow users to use SMS sign-in. So I'm going to start by adding, and I'm going to select the type as a business phone. I'll add in the country code and then the phone number. And I am going to select yes for is primary. The next thing that we're going to do is just fill out what kind of role this worker is going to come in as. And we are going to hire in Alice as a retail sales associate. And what we're going to do by adding this position is add Alice to all those groups and applications that she needs to get up and running quickly so that she can be productive as soon as she starts her job. So this is the field that is going to determine our provisioning rules, and it's also going to auto-populate all these other fields here. And we're going to select first day of work, continue, and submit. And of course, fill out whatever else we need to do, but for the purpose of this demo, we'll keep it pretty rudimentary. And because we've set up our custom application to pull in the data from SuccessFactors and the job to set the phone number as an authentication method, we won't need to do anything else to get our FLW up and running. Our provisioning job runs every 40 or so minutes, and so does the Power Automate script. So within a couple of hours, you'll see that user crop up in AAD with their phone number automatically set for SMS sign-in and without the need for any other admin work or intervention. I do want to note, because we had set that SMS sign-in policy, that's something that the admin will only need to do one time, and they would never need to do that again. So if we hired in another Firstline worker into this same retail sales associate group, we wouldn't have to go and set up that policy. Let's take a look at what that experience will look like for Alice, our Firstline worker. When she goes to sign in, she'll simply enter her phone number, and authenticate. She'll immediately have scoped access to everything she needs to get up and running quickly. After a one-time setup, this flow allows our company to simply integrate with the processes we already had in place and remove IT from the provisioning picture altogether. It also allows us to easily provide access to folks without the need to distribute credentials, making day one super convenient for both our retail workers and our IT team. Now that we've shown you how easy it is to get your employees into the system without putting undue stress on IT, we can talk about how easy it is to manage your first-line worker workforce. In Woodgrove's new remote-first environment, they wanted to make it as easy as possible for employees to get their technical issues resolved quickly. In order to do this, they delegated account management, including password reset and setting phone numbers, to store managers. In order to do this, Woodgrove needed administrative units for each location. So when we say location, that could be a store, that could be a factory. Here we have a few different cities, and they have all their employees of that area in the respective administrative units. They've also granted privileged authentication administrator access for each area owner. So this could be a store manager for stores of particular areas, and that again is scoped to the administrative unit. To get started using MyStaff, all we'll need to do is flip a switch. We'll go to Azure Active Directory, User Settings, Manage User Feature Preview Settings, and select All Admins Can Access MyStaff, and hit Save. And since I've already got my administrative unit set up and my area manager has that privileged authentication access for the administrative unit, everything will work seamlessly. We'll walk through what this will look like for our area manager. So in my company's new remote first environment, I'm a store manager in charge of a few stores across the country. I get a call from Gwen, one of the employees in my Seattle hub, that she can't access her account because she's forgotten her password. I say, no problem. I head to MyStaff and I find Gwen in the Seattle hub where she's based. I click on her profile and then I reset her password. And I'll send that along to her. This password reset, which would have traditionally entailed Gwen calling up IT, having to prove her identity, going through the hassle of help desk, can be fulfilled in under a minute, saving Gwen the frustration of that call, me as her manager, the frustration of having my worker be unproductive, and Woodgrove the cost of the support call and that loss of productivity from Gwen. Now that we've walked through how easy it is for you to delegate management, we'll do a run through of how easy it is to transition safely and securely between shared devices for those employees working on site. In order to get this set up, Woodgrove will need MDM managed devices connected to Azure Active Directory, applications that have been hardened to protect company data when used on shared devices, and a private preview with Teams, which is available now. The public preview will be available in the fall/winter of this year. Please note that setting up shared device mode is a joint effort between developers and cloud device admins. We will walk through the admin experience, but if you want to see how to configure your apps for shared device mode, check out the docs at the end of the presentation. So to get this set up from an admin perspective, we're going to start in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, and we're going to set up a special SSO policy. In order to do that, we're going to go to Devices, Configuration Profiles, and we're going to create a profile. We're going to do this on iOS. You can also do this on Android. And this is going to be a device feature. And we're going to call this Shared Device SSO. And you can set whatever configuration settings that you need. But what we're interested in this is this single sign-on app extension. So what we're going to do is configure this for Microsoft Azure AD. And what this is going to do is turn on the Azure Active Directory extension on all the devices that it gets pushed down to. So all those first-party apps are going to get SSO. we're going to flip yes for shared device sign out. You're going to see this warning that says, when you send this policy down, any devices that you have will get wiped. So your users will need to sign in again. Please, take that into account when testing out this policy. We're going to continue on, and then we're going to assign this to our Firstline worker group. If we wanted to, we could assign to all users, all devices, select groups of users or devices. But we're going to do that Firstline worker group. Select next and create the profile. So this policy will get pushed down by the MDM. Now what we need to do is turn on shared device mode in the Authenticator app so that the user sees that shared device sign out experience. So in order to do that, we will go to Apps. And first we're going to check that the Authenticator is set up, which it is for us here. We're not going to walk through that since we've already got that set up. But we are going to walk through how to set up the policy. So in order to do that, we are going to click App Configuration Policy, and we're going to add a new policy for managed devices. And we're going to call this shared device. And again, we're doing this on iOS, not Android. And we're going to select the Authenticator app. And we're going to enter this as XML data. So what we're going to do is it's not wanting to tab. There we go. So we're going to turn on shared device mode. This is all in our documentation if you want to read any further. Just to review, the SSO extension changed the configuration for the device, and this setting allowed us to deliver the SSO extension. Now we'll take a look at the end user experience. We've got two different apps here. And Brandon's going to sign in. And show us that he's SSO'd into both apps. When he clicks sign out, you'll see that he's signed out of both, reducing the risk of information overshare and inaccurate reporting about who's working at any given time. It also reduces the amount of time needed for your Firstline workers to sign out. Hopefully what we've shown you today can help fulfill some of your business needs. We've also gotten requests to expand our feature development into the following areas, which is where we plan to focus our energy next. Creating easier authentication options and expanding on scenarios that are available today. Easier setup for shared devices, including third-party MDMs. Easier onboarding and offboarding experiences so that you don't have to wait a week to get a temporary worker into your business. And enhanced communications between other Microsoft products and services so that we can make it as easy as possible for people to do their jobs. Our call to action is for you to test out our features. You can check out our documentation in the following links or reach out to us on Twitter. We love hearing your feedback, and we want to work with you to make sure that we're building products that solve your problems.
Thanks again for coming to learn about the Firstline workforce. We look forward to seeing you in some of the upcoming Ignite chat events as well if you have questions, and please reach out to us and engage if you wish to learn more about our Firstlines. Thank you.
Thanks.